What up? What up? Welcome back to the Long and Hard podcast. I'm Josh Blaze, and this is my co-host,
Thomas Harrington.
I'm coming from Montreal, Canada, and Thomas is over in Edmonton. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about moving forward in 2019 and kind of keeping yourself relevant in the ever faster changing world that we're living in.
Faster, constantly. Yeah, kind of that moving forward in life, business, your career. And I think part of that is kind of preparing for the future-proofing yourself.
Right.
And I think that's comes down to skills, right? Because maybe your job stops existing tomorrow, which is a viability being a real estate agent, I guess, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to happen right away, but plausible, right? So
everything's changing. I mean, if you're a cab driver, like, what's happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in the snow-covered parts of the world we come from, but automated driving is very much a thing, right? So
yeah, that's true. I don't know if you could drive through a whiteout blizzard with those things, but who knows?
I do believe it is specifically based on like being able to see the lines of the road.
Oh God, and
which
you
is
can't see the lines of the road.
Problem for Edmonton, and I'm assuming Montreal's about the same in winter.
6 months of the year, man.
Yeah.
Can't see anything. So yeah, I think that like this topic is super important and very interesting as we continually move forward into, I mean, the middle of 2019, getting to the end of 2019. Like, I mean, there's companies that are coming online every single day that didn't exist yesterday, that are trying to solve problems that, I mean, may put people out of the job, may build or create more jobs. But at the end of the day, you starting in your career, fresh out of university today, 20 years down the road, are probably not going to be doing the exact same thing that you're doing today. I think is a very valid and realistic point, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I heard it out there. Where the hell did I hear this? Anyways, a vast majority, I mean, they haven't really put a number to this because it's hard to quantify, but there's a very good likelihood you will retire from a job that doesn't exist right now, right? So, and the more you think about that, I think that makes a decent amount of sense. And to that point, I think it's more about, and the point of this show, kind of developing yourself as an individual and your skills, your mindset, and almost that bit of entrepreneurialism that's kind of spilling over just because it's so mainstream into, well, quote unquote, normal jobs where you might not technically be an entrepreneur, but how that can affect your life as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it all comes down to continuously learning, right? Like if you stop learning today, you're probably going to be irrelevant in like by the end of this year. Like, I'm not saying that to attack you, Thomas, personally, but I'm just saying,
yeah,
if you, a collective you, stopped learning today and just went with the flow, I mean, things are changing so quickly that by the end of this year, you may not have the skills that are necessary to actually compete in the current workforce at the end of 2019. It's actually like, it's kind of terrifying to think about, but there's so much opportunity that's continually being created that it's like very exciting at the same time.
Yeah, I think specific to that is kind of, you know, AI, kind of the threat of AI, right? Like a lot of people are worried that'll, you know, wipe out a mass number of jobs, which is true. But, and I mean, there's certain level of more, let's call them basic jobs without insulting everyone, that could be automated very easily and efficiently. And to that point, you know, in theory, there will be jobs around AI, right? Like, I don't think people should be worried. I'm not really worried about our AI overlords quite yet. But I mean, you know, before our time, everyone thought computers would change the office workplace and make a lot of stuff irrelevant. But it created a whole batch of new jobs because, you know, if you work in a big office, you have an IT guy, whether in-house or sometimes you hire a separate company. But, you know, how many jobs did computers bring with them too, right?
Right. You mustn't be reading any Ray Kurzweil and moving towards the singularity and all that shit.
I mean, hey, maybe, but
I think there's a lot of hype in that space too.
I think people overestimate human ability to act as one for the greater good, frankly, right?
Yeah,
so, but
very true.
Yeah.
And I mean, human emotions and psychology, those are all relevant things that are essentially like timeless. The human interaction, it's not going away. And the better that you can interact with other people today, the better off you're going to be moving forward in going into 2020 and into the 2020s, which is pretty friggin' crazy to think about that we're already in the 2020s. This is
I wonder if people, I mean, I guess will we start referring to it as, you know, you say the 80s, the 90s, will people start saying the 20s, but mean now, not 1920?
I don't know. They didn't really call it the 10s. So
yeah, the 10s, the teens. I mean, we'll 2010s, people call it, say 2010s, I think, but
yeah. Yeah, the 20s. Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Roaring 20s.
We're only 14 years away from a Great Depression.
Yeah, I guess from what if history repeats itself, right? So
yeah, but I mean, continually learning is never going out of style. And that is one of the biggest points we want to drive home today, is that you do maintain relevance by continually learning new skills and building on those skills. And then in addition to that, learning further skills that you can build on top of one another and build a, what do we call it here? A skill stack, essentially. Do you want to kind of talk about a little bit of what a skill stack is?
Yeah. So, I mean, where did we steal this from? There's kind of a corner of the internet that talks about this, but it's essentially like you should be good at a handful of things, and they kind of meld together, right? Like if you're a good salesperson, for example, well, I'm good at sales. That's not really an answer. It's more so you have some level of public speaking ability, even on a smaller scale. You know a little bit about persuasion, reading people, dealing with personalities, marketing, negotiations. Yeah. Like it all kind of melds together, right? And essentially, part of that is kind of making it unique as well, right? And then that comes together to form your skill stack, if you will. So you should probably have like maybe 5 to 10 things over the next however many years that you're not bad at, or you interest you, or you think will be beneficial to you, where your career, and it doesn't have to be in a super conventional way either, right? And kind of putting those all together. And I think you know, one of our 26 rules is that you probably won't be the top 1%, but you can be in the top 10%. And if you get a whole whack of skills where your knowledge and ability is in that top 10 to 20%, and you kind of compile them all together, well, you know, you're kind of a pretty good multiple way threat, if you will. And again, that's kind of the insulating yourself from the future, where if you have a whole bunch of skills that are multifaceted or can be transcribed to a different business or a different industry too, right?
Well, I mean, it's like differentiating yourself, and also like building okay, let's talk about probably what the most relevant skills are going to be moving forward. Like personally, I think sales. Yeah, we both agree on sales 100%. Something that's kind of I've been doing for the last few years, and I mean, you've been writing a lot more too, is obviously writing, and kind of writing in a persuasive way that includes sales techniques within the writing as well. I think that's super relevant too. What else do you think would be super relevant moving forward?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think one that is really, really good, and this is one I've always struggled with personally, is public speaking ability. Now, you know, when I say public speaking, like if you close your eyes and I just say the word public speaking, you probably start to imagine like a Tony Robbins seminar. You're on stage, you know, presenting to thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. really what it is. In a more day-to-day setting, like if you're not going to be a seminar speaker, which you probably won't, it's good to be able to speak confidently in front of like relatively smaller groups, like, you know, 20 or less, because that's realistically what you'll come across on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And even your ability to present and publicly speak in front of a stranger, right? So specific to real estate, you go into a listing presentation for a new listing, like you need to be able, that is public speaking in a way too, right? And confidently presenting your ideas. I think another one is probably going to be, well, a good understanding of social media, right? Especially as a small business owner / entrepreneur. And I think as we get like more and more towards kind of this sort of entrepreneurial minded economy that's coming about, kind of with our generation, you know, you need to have a personal brand online too, because that'll be part of, you know, I think that'll really replace the resume process in the very, very near future, where, you know, you'll literally just send someone your handles on Instagram, LinkedIn, I guess Facebook, or what maybe your blog, but whatever else. And that's what they're probably going to look at. I mean, they might look at, have you had a job in a relevant industry before? But I would say less. So I think a good understanding of social media marketing, how to get yourself visible on there, how to use it properly, if you will. And yeah, those are the ones I can think of that are more multifaceted without getting super specific. Because, you know, they're kind of going to be like funnel, if you will, where you have your top of funnel skills that are more applicable to everything, and then something more mid funnel. So for Josh, for example, Josh has learned a decent bit of code himself, right? And then for me, I would say probably one skill I really excel at is, well, I call it Google AdWords because I'm an OG, but it is now called Google Ads, right? and you know, that's a unique skill set in itself, and it's something I've developed over quite a few years through self-learning and, more importantly, trial and error, right? And I think that's a really crucial skill if you're going to start some sort of small business, even if it's a really small side hustle. Google is probably the best place to start. At least that's my totally unbiased opinion.
Yeah, I think like videography, we were talking about a little bit too, like the ability to create and edit video content. And I mean, photography probably plays a role into that too, but
it does. Well, we should maybe have the numbers here, but I mean, it is a well-known fact that every social platform is trending towards video in terms of people engage with it way better. They spend more time watching it.
Easier to consume.
Exactly. It is easier to consume. So, and I think that even works with public speaking, because, you know, if you're getting in front of a camera doing something on video, like you are putting yourself out there, and that's kind of that being comfortable with that.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, I know personally, I know of at least one person or two people that have gone on and created like full on professional photography companies, and like had gone out and done full stack like marketing through social media. Like, so I mean, we're talking a little bit more about the stack now, but I know one girl in particular, very good at social media, specifically Instagram, very good at photography. She's actually done some real estate photos for me. Very good at videography, also very like confident and really good at like writing captions and stuff like that, and like the sales that are involved. So you look at her skill stack and how she's gone on to essentially target companies and small businesses in our hometown. It's really admirable, and she's doing exceptionally well with it. So, I mean, you look at like that skill stack, for example, or you look at somebody who's really good at programming, and then also at sales, and then also at writing. Like, first of all, if you're good at programming, you can create pretty much anything your mind can think of. So you want to create whatever, the next Netflix, Google, whatever. Like, if you have an idea and you're good at programming and it involves a computer, you can create something exceptional. And then on top of that, you have the ability to sell it and get the word out there via your social media prowess or whatever, or your Google AdWord See, I'm an OG too. I call it Google AdWords too, but
it will be Google AdWords till the day we die. And no.
But I mean, if you're good at that sort of marketing too, like that, the online marketing channels, like you built up a skill stack that essentially you can build a business with very, very little money up front. Like, I mean, it's exceptional. And I think one skill that everybody should have today is the ability to kind of get themselves out there independently of social media. I think that social media is really good, but having the ability to have like a personal blog or something where you can have a portfolio of previous work that you've done, or even like an online resume, I think that that's very important. And I mean, the skill that's required to building a website is you don't really need to know how to code anymore. You need to know how to like drag and drop images on a screen. Pretty much. I mean, I was even going to, like, a few years ago, I thought something like WordPress was like a relevant, 2016 skill or whatever, but that's even, speaking of things moving quickly, like that's becoming more and more irrelevant because, WordPress is so middle of the road, and something like, say, Wix has caught up to it where you can build something that doesn't look like it's on a drag and drop template. Yeah.
It looks quite clean, it's responsive, and it looks like a modern enough website that you can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other end of that is like a fully custom build out website where you're actually writing the code of the website is. And then that kind of in between, like, I don't know, that gap, like that portion in between is kind of shrinking, I would say. Right. But
yeah,
and you might even, part of this whole personal brand thing, even if you're some middle of the, or, middle management or middle of the road, or like some, whether it be sales or accounting or finance or whatever you do, and let's call it like a more corporate job, even if you're in a trade, you should probably own your domain name, right?
Yeah. Like your personal name. Like joshblaze.com, thomasharrington.com. Yeah.
I have thomasharrington.ca, A, because I'm Canadian, B, unfortunately, thomasharrington.com was taken. But so I think it's important to own that. And then, yeah, you can kind of do your own website that you own. And even if it just kind of sits there and maybe you compile, like, I don't know, share your Instagram feed on there, or do a little bit of a blog, or you can, hell, even more of a virtual resume kind of thing. I think that would be a trend we'd really see moving forward. It's probably good to own info@yourname.ca or .com, right? Mm-hmm. Just for like an email address to have, right? Like you don't want to be, what's your email? I need to email you. It's Josh Blaze 42069 at hotmail.com, right? I mean,
it's beautiful dancer 92 at msn.com.
Mm-hmm.
No, 100%. I mean, it looks really nice when I'm sending an email from Josh at joshblaze.com. That's pretty cool. Like, and you can do it too for $17 on Google domains or whatever.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm going to start buying.
Very expensive.
What's that?
I said G Suite's not very expensive either, and it's accessible to everyone, right? So
yeah, exactly. That being said, I'm going to start buying all of my Facebook friends' domain names and then try to resell them to them.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to go the Mark Cuban route of just buying up domain names that will probably be popular and make our money that way. So if you want to, Josh and Thomas's guide to starting a business in 2019, go look up everyone on your Facebook/Instagram who's arguably the most popular, gets the most likes, posts the most often. Go buy their domain name and then list it for sale on GoDaddy auctions.
I mean, buying just random domains, it could be a business in and of itself. Like, I mean, I bought a stupid domain one time and I got called like a week later and the guy was like, "This is worth about $1,500. And I was like, "What?" like just stupid stuff like that. But yeah, like, I mean, it is very important to have your personal name.com or .ca or whatever, because I mean, even if we get into like malicious stuff and like, you piss somebody off and they go buy a domain name and then start defaming you online or something, it's a lot easier if you already own that domain or something. Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, I think they at one point in time had like a .sucks domain.
That'd be a
So
good
it could be Josh Blaze .sucks. I don't know if that still exists, but I remember that specifically being a thing, right? But
Yeah.
I think an overarching theme here is these are all self-taught skills, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, something like learning the Income Tax Act in university for your accounting job is useful, and that will arguably never go away, right?
Mhm.
But these more intangible skills that you want to build up that require, like the can you even teach them in a classroom? Like, there's not really any universities I know that are doing a good job of it, and most of these are more relevant skills that change so quick. There's no way you could feasibly have it as a university elective or whatever for, say, Google AdWords, where by the time they write the book, it'll be like 2 years behind what is currently happening, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not teaching you how to socially interact in school. Like, I mean, everybody gets drunk together and stuff, but
I guess, right?
it's not like you're actually like learning how you should be interacting with people and learning social cues and learning about body language and that sort of thing that are all applicable to sales. And I mean, in addition to that, like if you take a computer science degree, they don't even teach you how to program. Like it's mostly like, here's an application we want you to build, choose the best programming language to build it, go. And I mean, to be a programmer, you have to be self-taught too. Like it's the technology in that industry is there's so many different frameworks that come online on a regular basis. And I mean, I could do a whole show about going for with like hipster frameworks and stuff, but like there's so much that changes. And I mean, for example, I'm gonna go full nerd here for a second, but like
By all means.
yeah, but I mean, Twitter, for example, when it first came out, was built on a language called Ruby, and Ruby on Rails was the framework that was built on. That is essentially irrelevant today. Like nobody's building applications with that anymore. And I mean, there's just these different backend frameworks that come and go like every 6 months and stuff. It's very, very like interesting to look at. But I mean, you want to be continually learning in that space, because if you don't, like, you're going to get replaced. If you're still learning like old technology from like the early 2000s and you're trying to make it applicable today, it's like your clients aren't going to be very happy with you. So like you have to be continually moving forward, especially in that space. But I'm kind of biased when it comes to that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, skills and continually learning, universal concept. And school, you take your 4 years and then it's over. I mean, you and I personally know, I'm sure we can count dozens of people that are essentially going to be like, I did my 4 years and I don't need to learn anymore, right? And it's not like that at all.
No, you don't just shut it off the second you're finished, right? And I mean, even thinking back to some of the courses we took, like you have your what the hell, management information systems.
Yeah.
For Edmonton area folks, I believe U of A and McEwen call it the same thing, more or less. But that's supposed to be your introduction to information technology, and it is absurd how like it talks about a computer like it's a new thing, pretty much, right? Like these new machines that can do calculations for you and whatever. But
I think you and I took that class together even.
I think you're right. I don't know how much we went or we
how much, yeah, we were both in the class at the same time. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But and I think to that point is, think about, there kind of needs to be an overhaul, I would say, in the university system, just in the structure, right? Because a 4-year degree, you're kind of buying into the prestige, which maybe was once there, but when you think of how many filler courses you took, right? I mean, perhaps it makes you curious and makes you expand your mind. I would argue not, right? When you're taking 100 level electives as like a 3rd or 4th year just to get those credits in that are requirements, like
that was me That was
Oh,
me.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I believe actually it was a good day when I realized as a fourth year student, when I went to an advisor to check how many electives I needed, I hadn't used up all my 100 level electives. So I think I took 2 or 3 100 level like BS courses in my fourth year just to get the credits, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I would argue most university programs could be consolidated into like 18 to 24 months of actual learning
Yep.
about all the core competencies that you need, and you would be well equipped for any job. And you know, we kind of see that in like technical degrees from you know, like more like institutes of technology sort of thing, and
Right.
those type of institutions, which are really good, but unfortunately they don't quite have the shine and prestige of perhaps an actual commerce degree, right? 4-year degree, which I
Yeah.
mean, it, you know, going forward, I think it's more about, well, online self-taught. I know something you've said is when we get to the world of coding, like most big companies don't really care about your degree. It's more what can you
No.
do or write this code for me, right? So
Yeah, meritocracy is coming back, and I mean, like, it's it's a good thing because I mean, these companies care about what can you do. So if you're actually looking to get a job, like, it's more about what can you do as opposed to what does your piece of paper say that you can potentially do, I guess. So when you go into these interviews now, it's very more so technical, and they're asking these questions to see what your actual ability is, as opposed to, oh, you went to MIT, T-Tech. like, like no, like it's very much more about the relevance of where you're at and what your abilities are now, more than ever, which is a good thing, I personally think, because I mean, you get to really get the people on board that are capable. And I mean, when I'm looking to hire people, I'm looking for a skill set. I'm not really looking for the university degree. Like, it doesn't matter to me personally. It's more about, can you do this? Are you good at this? And if you are, and we click, I mean, you're hired, you know?
yeah, I mean, even something like real estate. I mean, people ask me what it takes to get a real estate job. You literally just pay a bunch of money for a course, and almost any brokerage will hire you because it's,
You're
you know, when it's 100% commission based, if you suck or you're really good, what do they care, right? Like they
yep.
don't have to pay you anything guaranteed.
Yeah, there's no investment that they're making into you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. And, you know, even to backpedal a little bit to like degrees and stuff, like, you know, it's a topic that we mention a lot is Google AdWords and social media marketing. And I think we'll get into some specifics of that if you're someone who's like some level of business owner or in a position where you need or should be doing your own advertising.
Mm.
We don't have marketing degrees. I took like one marketing course in university, right?
I took a bunch, and they were
you took more than me, and
they're super irrelevant.
That, like, did any of them teach you how to how to actually set up a Facebook campaign? Did they teach you how to set up a Google AdWords campaign?
No.
Did they teach you copywriting, right? Which
absolutely
for
not.
anyone in any kind of sales, particularly online, or if you're emailing people, copywriting is probably a good thing to add to your talent stack as well, which is, in other words, persuasive writing. And I actually specifically remember taking some sort of persuasive or business writing course at university where we had to write a quote unquote sales letter. And like, it was laughable. I mean, the teacher was, you know, a nice person and all, but I don't think she had ever sold anything in her life, frankly. Right. And, you know, it really just boils down to, it's all self-taught. And, you know, I think marketing is probably one degree that we pick on a lot. Right. So, and
most definitely.
Hey, maybe if you want to go work at a really big marketing firm, do you need a degree still? Maybe, right? I mean, that's kind of that corporate hierarchy world that you have to buy into, and neither of us are into that, and we would encourage you not to be either, right? For developing a more free lifestyle. But I mean, you know, I would put put it up there that, I'm probably in the top 10% for Google AdWords. Will I be the top 1%? I mean, I could learn how. There's a few things that I don't know how to do on there. I admit it, or they're a little more complex. They're above my weight class at the moment, but it's fully self-taught. It's been years of trial and error and learning as you go, but it does generate me, a very solid income comes directly from my work on Google AdWords, right?
Right. Well, I mean, going back to the marketing degree, did they teach you about funnels? Did they teach you about conversions? They teach you about like an offer and then having a converting offer on top of that? They teach you about email lists. They teach you about any of this shit.
I mean, you could do a marketing student at any university a favor by walking into their classroom and drawing a funnel on the board and walking out. And that's an incredibly simple concept that, now that you mentioned that was never mentioned to me, like the idea of a sales funnel. And that's pretty simple marketing and sales. Like any company should be aware of their funnel and what it looks like and where's the top of funnel traffic coming from. How are we retargeting the mid funnel, the conversion at, like you said, the conversion after the sale as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like we're shitting on school a lot, but I don't think either of us say that nobody should go to school. I think that there's definitely things that people should go to school for, i.e. like if you're getting into medicine and stuff. I probably don't want a doctor that hasn't done their 8 to 10
I probably
years.
don't want a doctor who's like, no worries, I'll look this up on YouTube before.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, I mean, obviously there's still relevance when it comes to that sort of stuff. But if you're going to school to get a business degree and it's not like a finance degree or like an accounting degree, what are you doing, man? Like, and we can both say that because we both did it, I think.
I think that's a good distinction to make of, why should you listen to us? Why are we qualified to talk about it? It's because we have the degrees, and like it's almost painful to think to yourself when you look at how arguably useless they are, right, in our day-to-day lives. Now, we've also gone very much one side of the spectrum. I acknowledge that too, right? Yeah, but I mean, you're it's not. Yeah, it's extra irrelevant for us because we've gone a very different route than either of our degrees would dictate. But it's still there, right?
You could make a lot more difference in your life by taking that $20,000 or $30,000 that you're going to put in school and start a Facebook ad campaign tomorrow for a product that you've designed and learn from that. You will learn exponentially more than a business degree is going to teach you, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, if you, what number did you say? 25,000?
Yeah, I said 20 to 30,000, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's say 30,000 on the high end of things. Like, what are you going to do with the other $29,000, right? You can very easily trial start your business idea for honestly a couple $100, if not that, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. That's been covered. Maybe we'll kind of just rehash it on here to provide some value, but
a domain costs you $17 Canadian.
Yeah.
Hosting costs you like 150 maybe a year. Like,
well, and you can even do something without buying inventory or designing it. You can do, it's called like a fake out page, but basically where when someone goes to check out, I mean, you essentially say it's not available or out of stock, and you get them to sign up for your email list. Yep. If you track the click-throughs on that, you can gauge if people will actually be interested in purchasing whatever.
Bro, did you read The 4-Hour Work Week?
Oh man, don't like. Yeah, so if there's a reading list that we put together for this show, there will also be a do not read list, and at the top of that would probably be the 4-Hour Work Week. Now, it brings up an interesting concept at the very least of, it poses the question of, if you work 40 hours a week to make $40,000 a year doing some grinding it out at some job you really don't like, or you make 40 grand a year selling, I don't know, like blue collared t-shirts on the internet, who is happier, who has more freedom? Well, that's actually a good lesson, but I just equated that to you in about 30 seconds, right?
Yeah. The book does have, like, it gives a good mindset shift, but yeah, like, you are not going to be working 4 hours a week. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, I don't think there's any successful person, or even like medium successful, who's working 4 hours in a week. Right. So I would say get that idea out of your head for sure. And I think, Tim Ferriss is actually very interesting, and there's a lot you can learn from him, but there's kind of the Robert Kiyosaki's of the world, and Jordan Belfort's who are selling you, a get rich quick scheme, if you will. And I think the 4 hour work week, in all honesty, is right in the middle, leaning towards that. Right. And we're trying to be the other end of that spectrum of giving a little more honest advice of, it might not work perfectly the first time. It might take a few tries, but it is doable.
I mean, that kind of segues into our next point about like online learning courses and stuff. Like, instead of going to university, there are definitely amazing courses out there that you can take on pretty much any subject. I mean, and there's more that are coming online every single day. However, there's a lot of the get rich quick, this is how you build a 6-figure business in 2 week type courses out there. And I mean, you got to be, obviously, like, you got to use your head when it comes to this sort of stuff, but there is a huge push towards, I think, online learning resources that are like, I mean, there's a lot of resources, for example, on Udemy. There's a lot of like universities in the States now that are doing like full open courseware, where if you really want to learn about a subject, you can go take like a computer science introductory class if you wanted to for free, and even get a certificate at the end of it for like $90 or something if you go through the entire course.
Like, right. I couldn't think of the name, but Udemy is kind of the big one, correct?
Yeah, Udemy, Udacity, even LinkedIn's doing a thing now. I think they bought lynda.com, or I could be wrong about that, but they're doing like LinkedIn learning stuff now too. Like,
okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of investment going towards this type of like de-universitification. I just
new word. We'll get our imaginary producer to look that up on dictionary.com for us.
You put it on dictionary.com. Cool.
Yeah.
And credit it to the Long and Hard podcast. But there's definitely a push away from university when it comes to this stuff, because I think that there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley and people that have created these companies that are kind of disenfranchised with it too. Like, we're not the only ones that are saying this. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like contrarian in a lot of ways, but I think it's, kind of good advice. And this is a very easy thing to say being on the other side of it. But, if I had started as a realtor right at 18 with a high school diploma, which is the minimum requirement for those of you wondering, like, that would mean I would be 7 years into my career. I think I'd be pretty far ahead. But I guess the counter argument is, well, university did kind of shape me in this direction in many ways, but I think the knowledge that we walked out of, McEwen, grade school, the knowledge we walked out of there with, and, any university across, the world, minus a few select degrees, if you look at like, okay, what was the actual good knowledge that you learned? You could probably compact that very easily into like 12 Udemy courses that are $97 plus applicable taxes, and you get a certificate at the end, right? So, is it something, and this kind of ties, we're kind of looking at something like a talent stack, which is kind of an abstract concept, and if you want to develop any of the things we talked about here, like, it's going to be 100% self-taught, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of good resources out there. And now, it's interesting to think about this kind of LinkedIn learning, your Udemy, your Udacity, right?
Yep.
Those coming together in in a more formal way, I guess, right?
Mhm.
So basically picking your skills, your options you want to learn about, and you know,
Building a
obtaining,
portfolio kind of.
building a portfolio of
Yeah.
courses and knowledge that you've acquired, but in a very, you know, pay as you go kind of way, honestly, to call it what it is.
Right. It's like I got $15 I want to spend that's burning a hole in my pocket. Might as well go buy a course. I mean, there's obviously bullshit courses on there too, don't get me wrong, but there are very good like programming courses. You can learn frameworks, you can learn a lot of different stuff when it comes to like marketing, sales, even real estate and asset investment, finance, like all that stuff. Like,
yeah, well, I think you know, it's how do you distinguish the BS from what might actually be good courses out there, and it is hard to vet, right? Because everyone's out there, you know, flexing their rented Lamborghinis or whatever. I think something like if you want to learn coding or something that's arguably concrete, that one's harder to go wrong with.
yeah.
But when you're trying to learn sales,
Oh,
copywriting,
yeah.
how to start an online business, how to build your first online, you know, e-commerce store or whatever, like there is a lot of crap out there, right? And it, you know, I would say well, do your own research. You know, when our recommended reading list comes out, we should hopefully have a few people on there who are useful for this sort of thing. But you know, it's easy to tell if you're good at reading people who actually walks the walk by how they talk about it. And I would say it's kind of an inverse of what you might think. So the more someone talks about how much they're going to teach you and these new sales techniques and how great their course is, it's probably the opposite, right? And I would say more kind of the people who are in the middle, like, hey, here's my e-commerce course. Take it, don't take it. This is what it'll teach you, right? Here's kind of the breakdown.
Yeah. I'm not going to take any shots at anybody, but probably don't buy a course on how to make a course.
there, you know, I mean, our dads and the generation before that, us, you know, they had to watch infomercials, you know, on whatever channel or on the channel, where it was that where you would call in and buy a booklet that taught you how to get rich by making a booklet on how to get rich, sort of thing. Like, and now you have the 2019 version of that, for sure.
How to get
Right?
rich selling courses on how to make courses online. Well, I mean, it goes back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, man. It's like how to write a book on how to get rich, but get rich off the book you were selling in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird oxymoron. And I mean, a lot of that, you know, the copy and the message of those sort of advertisements, like, you can probably pick up that it's selling you a get rich quick scheme, and that is probably your first clue that it's not what it says it is, or it's not going to live up to expectations.
Anything else you want to touch on for this episode? I think we got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I think we got some good places to start. One more thing I wanted to talk about here was, a good place to know where to look when you're trying to learn online is, you know, and we're trying to practice this too, whether it be together or for me and some, you know, real estate content I'm working on now. There's the knowledge out there that you should give away 90% of your information and advice for free. Right?
Oh, this is a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And the charge for kind of that top 10% or that extra, right? So, and, you know, I think Gary Vee is probably the first person who really, you know, put their thumb on this item and really professes it, right? Because when you give away that much knowledge, people will find what you're saying useful. And more often than not, that extra piece of knowledge that you still have is only an true expert can do that. But someone who is giving away a lot of their knowledge and content and courses, or not courses, but information for free, that's probably someone worth listening to, because, you know, they know that number one, only a small percent of people will actually act on that. So they kind of have nothing to lose. And if someone, really maxes out their knowledge, they might be calling you up to work with you, right? And I would say part of that too is before you go start buying, a $10,000 coaching program from Robert Kiyosaki or whoever, max out the free knowledge that's out there. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of great resources, podcasts online, YouTube, blogs, and it's really boils down to your execution on a subject, and that's a big part of how we've learned, right? Like you can read all day about how to write a good ad or whatever, but unless you actually practice, unless you actually go out and try to put together your first Facebook campaign, there's going to be glitches and bumps. You need to actually go through the motions and that's a big part of learning, right? So I've actually, I read a lot about Google AdWords when we first started it about 2.5 years ago for our business together selling real estate. And since then, I actually haven't done a lot of reading on it. It's more so indirectly, I guess, in terms of reading more about copywriting, but learning how to better target specific wording, I guess, is it. And, without getting into it too much, but, there is a lot of good free knowledge out there, and the people giving away a lot of free knowledge are probably the ones worth listening to.
And they're probably also the good people, like the people that are actually good at sales, because it's literally a technique. Like obviously you give away information. There's a tenet of reciprocity, right? Like I give you something, you're more likely to give me something back at the end of the day. And if it's something that you can act on and that's actually gives you results, you're even more likely to come back to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, to kind of wrap it all up here, school is bullshit, drop out right now. But, the best way to keep yourself moving forward, to prepare for the future, to improve yourself is continuous learning, I guess, is really the
underlying theme, I think, for sure. Yeah. Continually learning, never thinking you're done. And then on top of that, just making sure that you are always kind of looking for the next thing and kind of looking where the ball is going. I think we said this in the last take of this podcast, but going where the puck is going to be, the Wayne Gretzky tenant or whatever. Like you want to be continually on the lookout as to where industries are moving, and kind of like, I mean, how did Bill Gates become worth $90 billion? He saw where computers were going before anybody else. Same thing with Steve Jobs. Same thing with Jeff Bezos when he was building Amazon. He saw that the internet was not going away and it was only going to get bigger. So looking for that sort of thing too, right? Like you don't want to be sitting back and chilling out. You want to be, what are the trends? What's new? What's actually going to stick? What are people actually buying into? And keeping that in mind as well too. I think we could do a whole show about that one, which is like the successful people that have really been going the direction before anybody else was, because they had this like undying belief in like what potential is out there for their technology or their business or whatever it may be too.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably a good spot to end this show.
I agree. Pretty good show, man. Lots of not a lot of show notes, but a pretty good show. So
I'd say so. I mean, we're getting a little less clunky, hopefully. So if you listen from episode 1 onward, we're getting a little smoother here. Yeah, that was a good groove. I think this is more the route we want to go. The overall name of this podcast and stuff was to discuss and get into these topics and what it means for us and for you. And we'll kind of, I'd also like to do a few episodes on some more specific advice, like here's your Google AdWords episode, here's your Facebook ads episode.
Yeah, how to build a business for $200 or less or something like that too.
Yeah, something like that. That's good, actually.
Cool, man.
All right, well, we'll sign this off for now. So I'm Thomas.
And I'm Josh.
And we will chat with you next time.
Yeah, man. Keep it long and hard.